Okay, check this out. This is wild. These are. I'm gonna see what's going on with this. So color, everything is good. Color in the background is good. Color on my logo here. Look at my books. And this is the cover of my book, Thoughts from Sunrise, and this is supposed to be a bright, glowing sun. I wonder what this means. Look at this. You get closer, you get the sort of get the thoughts from sunrise in there. It's like the black hole. You know what this reminds me of? This. Let's see what these do. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that sun. Oh, what a cool effect. Okay, so this. Wow, that's wild. I wonder what that's about. Anyways, you see how they're. This is supposed to be. This is a bright yellow sun on here, with the effects around there. I designed these books. These are my meditation books. So what this reminds me of is sitting on the meditation cushion, going into samadhi, and this place of just absolutely getting enwrapped by everything, where consciousness becomes uh, everything. There's no more body identification, and the crossover is like this. It's just like dark and light. It's this infinite blackness with infinite light, all in one. And this was like this flashing of the crossing over. So it's pretty wild. It's blowing me away that this is happening on the camera. I don't know if this is on your end, but what I'm seeing in the computer is that this is like phased out in black, and that is supposed to be like a brilliant sun. Can you see that? That's wild. That's wild. Anyways, welcome to my God. I keep doing my first videos over and over again, and they're always in different settings, a different year later. And one of these days I'll get into doing a consistent video. But I've been watching. I see what the governor's doing on this COVID-19 stuff, and it sounds great. They're active and helping everybody out. I think we need all the help that we can get through this. Um, the particular point of view that I can offer is a different perspective that could help some people. This is not necessarily for everyone because it doesn't really fit in with all of the normal societal views. So if it is not for you, you can turn this off easily. I'm not demanding that anybody listen to what I say. I'm not demanding anybody do what I do. I'm just sharing a perspective. And hopefully perspective is something that resonates. Hopefully it's something that maybe you can look more into. You can send questions and ask about it. Um, and my time is here to help and be of service in the best way that I'm able. And that for me is something that's also very uncomfortable for me, which is um, sharing my inner experience and thoughts on things. So this is a practice for me, and I look forward to feedback. It doesn't always have to be good feedback. I welcome all feedback. Um, there's nothing like showing us who we are, but by the response that the world gives us. And I think that's something that inherently is in my writing and in the stuff that I say is how do you know yourself, but by how you see the world, and the world provides this wealth of information to us. Um, and in my meditation books here, I've got this box set that I wrote called Thoughts from Sunrise. Um, if you notice I've got like my hands aren't super clean right now. I just got back from work. I was doing plumbing and carpentry and tile work all day, so um, I'm not I haven't prepared for presenting myself on camera. So for that I apologize, but I'm watching these speeches on YouTube right now, and I just felt compelled that I've got to start recording this stuff and getting it out, and not waiting for tomorrow. And that's been for a lot of this stuff. What I've been doing is waiting for tomorrow for years, but that's my personality style, and it doesn't always serve me, and it doesn't always serve you. So I'm going to get started. And what I think I'm going to do is just start doing individually, one page at a time. I've got 90 meditations, some better than others, but everybody's got their own thing. So some of them might resonate, some might not. So what I want to start on is my first one, which is on page 8 of the first issue of Thoughts from Sunrise. And along with that is a picture of the sunrise that I've collected. What it says is, life more often than not shows untruth in an effort for one to discover truth. That's how the contrast of duality works. Do not personalize the nature of the showing. It is a gift to waking up to a deeper reality. When truth is discovered, the contrasting appearances merge into one. Um, so that's may sound nice, but what does it actually mean? And in recent times, we've come across a span in pop culture or in society where there's all this fake news, this untruth. It's really coming to the forefront now, and I think that's a good thing. I think now, we've lived in a state of sleepiness for so long, and we're starting to wake up consciously. We're absolutely starting to question reality, question what is true. And what I've found is that every time I have a question in my mind, when I start learning something new, I have an experience. And that experience is showing me exactly what I was trying to learn. And it comes through a person, it comes through an event, it comes through something, and it's so stark that I can't ignore it. Now, generally, what we can just do is continue to personalize it and put a name on it and a face and say, well, that was Jenny, or that was, the politician, or that was this or that, and that was a thing, and fail to learn what we're actually here to do. And I know now when I'm reading something, when I'm studying, and I'm working on understanding, say, like the Enneagram. If any of you are familiar with that, it's those personality styles. When I'm on a particular number, something will happen later that day where, bam, somebody does something that is so overt that I can't miss it. And that's, I think, humanity. What we're going through now is a shift phase in consciousness. I'm sorry, a phase shift in consciousness, and there's a struggle because there's an identification with the way things were, and what we're moving into is a new phase. And so all of these things become heightened. They seem like emergencies. They seem like they're so important that we have to fix to go back to normal. But what if we're past normal? What if we've already evolved past normal, or we're in the evolutionary stage of getting past that stage into the next phase? Like, do we really want to live in status quo for the rest of our lives? Um, Maybe some people say yes, that yes, they just want to be comfortable and live, but is that what life is showing us? And so we may have preferences based on our own personal nuances of what we find comfortable and what we think our personal goal is in life. But then, what's happening with life itself? And so that's where we can stop and take a look at the bigger picture of what's happening. And when you personalize the nature of the showing, which means we put a name to it, we put a face on it, we put a story and a label, and that sort of limits the possibility of what we can learn from what's happening. It limits the possibility of what kind of feedback we can receive as an individual, as a human being, and as a spiritual being. And I want to make that clear, that anything that I speak about is not going to strictly be about human being, because part of the application of being a human, um, if you only identify as that, you're leaving out the majority of experience of life, which is the unseen. And when I talk about spirituality, it's not about religion, it's not about a particular God, it's not about a particular sect or strain of religiosity of sorts. It is just referring to the unseen phenomena that maybe Einstein would call a spooky movement in the distance, or Alan Watts would consider the squiggliness of life. Something there's something in me that when I do something outside shifts. There's this reflective nature to the world that reflects back to ourselves individually, and it reflects back societally, it reflects back globally. And so when you take all of that, there's a movement to life that occurs. And part of this is when we depersonalize it, when we start to look at what's actually happening. Um, and we surrender our own fears about it, our own our own instances of trying to control what's happening and grasp onto something. There's so much more to view in the world. There's so much more to see in the possibilities. There's so much more to see in what's going on. There's so much more to see in so many things. when we are released from our grip of fear of, who am I, or who am I going to be, or what's right and wrong. That shit's changed over eons, and that, just keeps morphing and evolving and puts on new clothes. So when you undress everything and you just look at it without our biases, there's something quite wonderful that occurs. Um, so I guess what this worst one is saying, that life more often than not shows untruth in an effort for one to discover the truth. While we experience ourselves as individual beings that are separate from the whole, and what I mean by that is that, it's easy to say, yeah, we're all one, right? Because we share earth, we share sky, and we're all breathing in the same elements, and I breathe out, you breathe in, and so we're transferring stuff like that. And so generally, on the surface, you would think that we are connected in that way, where we're sharing something. Um, and where I'm going with this is that uh, the untruth is shown while you experience life in that way. That's the duality. And on a certain level of consciousness, there's a trajectory towards unity and towards this oneness, which is that there is, while there is the other person is not separate from you. So it's not just that there's space and we're sharing something, is that there is a very deep fundamental connection between you, myself, and everyone else around. And so while there's the belief in this space between us and the sense of duality, without that very fundamental oneness, um, all of this untruths come up. The world reflects back the lies that we tell ourselves about the world. It comes up to tell us that we're not safe, we're not okay, we're threatened, we're not valuable, we're not this, we're not that, and we live our lives in the capacity to overcome, or not the capacity, but we live our lives in a sense, mostly unconsciously overcoming those lies. And so when we're getting closer, and so now I think we're on the brink, um, and we have a choice. So we have a choice to go back and cower in fear and hide out in the duality, or we have a chance to transcend the lies. And this does not come from fighting the world. It doesn't come from trying to coerce someone else to abide by my discomforts. It comes from me going inside and finding out for myself that those discomforts are not true. And so when I meditate and I say, when I check in with myself, when I go deep enough and when I can surrender those stories so much that there's just the quietness and the experience of myself, is all of those lies go away. There's the experience of okayness, the experience of fundamental truth, which is your uniqueness has value. Your everything about you is meant to be, and so um, the experience changes. And this type of experience generally follows with healing, and often healing of the body. If the body doesn't heal, then there's other things at play, and there's much deeper things. So it's not necessarily a guarantee. And so there could be some acceptance of the fundamental uncertainty of life as well, at least life in the body. Um, so I hope that's not too confusing for everybody. I'm going to start going through these and hashing out more and more of my thoughts on these meditations that I wrote. When I reread them, um, God, I wish I could share these with everyone, and I wish everyone could understand. But as I understand the world goes, you can't force anything on. I know we try to legislate this stuff to death, but it doesn't bring understanding, it doesn't bring peace, it doesn't bring healing, to legislate this stuff. So all I can do is share as best I can, and hopefully I get better at it. Um, but that's the start. Feedback is appreciated. Questions. Try to keep them honest, and try to, while you're writing feedback, just check in. I know a lot of times, there's stuff I resist responding because they're still fighting me, and I want to fight some things or prove something, and then I've got to check that. And I would ask that you do the same as well, and provide some really good, honest feedback or dialogue, something that can be respected and valued, and we'll go from there. Wish you all well and peace.